If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by portrait photography, or just at a loss of what to focus on to take you to that next level, then come hang with me. I help guide portrait photographers just like you to stay clear and sharp in camera and with your goals. I'm your host, photographer, educator, and weirdly positive mama of four, Emily Supio. And this is the Stay Focused podcast. Photography advice to help you stay focused. Well, hey there, it's Emily Supio, and thank you for pressing play on today's episode of the Stay Focused podcast. I know that there are a lot of choices out there when it comes to podcasts and learning photography, and so I am very appreciative that you chose to tune in today. I don't think today's episode will disappoint because we are talking about the F words of photography today. The two most feared words of new photographers, film and flash. Hopefully they're not too scary for you, but if they are, or if they make you feel a little nervous, Kristin Darling is on the show today, and she's going to break down film and flash in a much easier way so that you feel a little less intimidated by those two fearful F words. Now, I can remember back to when I was 15 years old and I was first starting taking photography classes back in high school. I absolutely fell in love right from the very beginning. But back when I was 15 years old, I don't know if digital cameras were even around. It was straight up only film cameras that we were working with. And I can remember really having to take the time to set my shot up and really having to be intentional and having a vision beforehand. And I think it was probably just drilled in our head from my art instructor and photography instructor at the time that, film was expensive and we didn't have endless amounts of film to take shots. So I was taught right from the beginning to be really intentional. And I know that I teach a lot of my students that as well. And Kristin Darling is really going to focus in on that a lot more today and break down why you would want to shoot film today, how to do it, and then get into flash as well. I think you're really going to get a lot of value out of today's episode. Now, you may have already heard me talking about the creative collaboration this month, but both Kristin and I are part of that. The creative collaboration opens Monday, February 27th, and you'll want to take a look in the show notes or just click the link that's in the description of wherever you are listening to this podcast today. The creative collaboration only happens once a year, and it's over $11,000 worth of photography education bundled into a sweet package for only $97. The only catch is that it's only available throughout this week, so you want to make sure that you head over there and check it out. It won't disappoint you guys. It is very, very cool, very useful, and even if you only are interested in one of the pieces of education in there, it is well worth the money. But like I said, there's over 50. So check out the creative collaboration in the show notes or the description wherever you're listening today. All right, everyone. I have Kristin Darling on the show with us today. Hey, Kristin, how are you?
Good. How are you, Emily?
Good. Well, thank you so much for being here and for chatting with us today. Kristin, you do something that I think a lot of photographers, especially new photographers, two things that when they hear these words, it makes them very scared. Flash and film, the two F's, the F words, right? Now,
Yes.
Why did you decide to really hone into learning those two things?
So I am actually old enough to have originally been a film photographer way back when. And then I switched to digital when everything went digital. And film just has a soul that can't be captured with digital images. And not only that, but film makes me slow down and really make sure that I am capturing the moment that I want to capture instead of just click, 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 and hoping that I capture somewhere in there. Plus, I am an overshooter, and film is expensive. That's probably the scariest part about it, is the expense. But it makes me, like I said, slow down and not shoot so much. So there's not so much time editing, and there isn't as much time culling. So it really, it just makes my process a lot smoother, and it gives me a lot more family time, which is super important.
Yeah, I love that. And I knew that about film, but I guess I never really thought of it that way. And when I work with my students, a lot of times I tell them that a big mistake is that you shoot too fast. A lot of new photographers, they, click, 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 just like you said, and then they hope that one is going to come out. And we can, you can do that with digital cameras because, well, it doesn't cost that much for every single shot, right? But I think that is a good, I don't know, a lesson or exercise to try as a new photographer to get a film camera, because it does teach you just to slow things way down, and be very intentional about your shot. And when you convert that over to a digital camera, that's going to help you even more then. So that's a great point.
Oh, absolutely. And it helps you see light better too, because film is so dependent on light that you start to see better quality light versus lower quality light. And it makes a huge difference there too.
I like that. So, okay, because I know a lot of people that are listening right now have their digital camera, their mirrorless camera. That's what they're working with right now. But let's say we did want to have an exercise where we went out and we rented, or we found a film camera and wanted to tinker around with that. Where do we start with film? What do you recommend? Where do we even start? Yes, let's go there.
That's a great question. So I recommend finding an old 35 millimeter film camera, because 35 millimeter film will have 36 images per roll, as opposed to medium format, which has 16 images per roll.
Okay.
You can find a good used Canon Rebel 35 millimeter camera, film camera on eBay for $25. So that's super affordable. A roll of film is going to cost you about the same right now, but yeah, you start there. You can get online. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about how to shoot film. There's great film communities on Facebook, and or you can contact me and I can help you learn how to also. But really, the biggest thing would be to get out there and just try it. I also recommend, if you really start to think that that's something you want to do, to get a handheld light meter. Also, you can't.
Okay.
These 35 millimeter film cameras are getting older and older. And as we know, parts don't always stay working in great working order in cameras. So the meter does start to potentially fail. That's the first thing that's probably going to fail on a film camera. So handheld meter just gives you the ability to measure light as accurately as possible, so that your exposure is spot on.
Okay, so $25 35 millimeter camera, a roll of film, a light meter, and you guys are good to go. Now, Kristin, I remember back in the day, shooting on film, but I would, shoot on film or get the disposable cameras that had the film. And I was doing it more just for fun with my friends than, being a professional photographer. But we would take those rolls of film and put them in a little envelope and put them in the slot at Rite Aid or CVS. What is the process now? If you're doing that, is that what you do? Is just send it off to the drugstore, or what do you do from there?
You don't send it off to the drugstore.
Okay.
There are fewer and fewer local camera shops that are developing film. I personally send my film off to PhotoVision, which is in Salem, Oregon. So I am putting it in a baggie and shipping it off still. But I'm sending it to a professional lab where I know that they are going to scan it and color correct it and take the best care of it. And what they do is they scan it on a scanner and they send me the digital images back as JPEGs. And I know that can be scary to people to think, oh, I'm only getting a JPEG back in our digital world of raw images. But what you're getting back is so much closer to being your final product that really all you're having to do is add a little contrast or maybe turn down the highlights a little bit. So there's not so much editing involved. So the JPEG is not a scary word where that's concerned.
Okay, that was my next question, because when you said editing, like I can remember too, back in high school, I took quite a few photography classes where we would get the film and we would go into the dark room. And a lot of, I guess, the editing was done in the dark room.
Yes.
But now, so you're saying you ship it off and they send you back not prints, they send you back the JPEG.
Correct.
And then from there, you bring it into like Lightroom or Photoshop. Is that correct?
Yeah, Lightroom is my main editing source. But yes, you can take it into Photoshop also. I can still swap faces if I need to. I can crop if I need to, all those sorts of things. So really, it's really no different. You got to think of a negative as your raw image. And so in your lab is kind of your first step in editing, and you're just kind of the last pass before it goes to the client.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. I like that. And that kind of gives you then a little insurance policy that your final image, the one you take isn't the absolute image, because you can still kind of play around with it a little bit later, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Kristin, okay, our first F out of the way. Let's move into that second big F word, flash. Now, for those people who are, maybe natural light only, or they just got, their Canon Rebel, T7i or T5i, whatever you guys have. I know a lot of you use that Canon Rebel, and you want to get into flash photography. Where do we start there?
Absolutely. So my recommendation is, first of all, kind of just the whole thing between natural light photographers and those using artificial light. I think that there's a big stigma of it's going to look flashy or unnatural, and it's not going to have that nice soft light look that most of us, the natural light look that most of us are looking for. But really, you need to just think of a flash as just an alternative to the sun. And if you think of it that way, it's not so scary. But also, I would recommend starting with getting a speed light, one that you can put on your camera. Speed lights can also be taken and put on a light stand off camera. And all you need is a trigger. Some cameras now even have the built-in remotes for those. So that's where I would start off with, is a simple speed light before you invest too much money into, because you can invest a little bit of money or you can invest a whole lot of money. So I recommend starting small and building up from there.
Okay. So I guess my next question is why? Why would you want to move into learning flash? If there's light all around everywhere, why bother?
Well, there is light all around, but there's not. So when I started out, I live in central Illinois. Winters are very, very long in the Midwest, and we don't have a lot of light. And what light we do have is pretty much gone by 3:30 in the afternoon during most of the winter. And so if I want to work and have consistent looking images all the time, I needed to find a way to make sure that I could create that consistent light all the time. I started out using my living room as my studio, and it doesn't have a whole lot of natural light to it. So I had to figure it out, because I needed to still make money in the wintertime. And I moved into a studio, which didn't have a whole lot of natural light. And I just found a way to create a natural light look without actually having it. So that is why you would want to use it, because quality light is not a given all of the time. And quality light can make or break an image, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that gives you that consistency and just that knowing that you can make light, right? Isn't that cool? And I totally get it, because I grew up in Michigan. I grew up in the Midwest. And when you're describing this, I'm like, yes, I remember those dreary, cloudy months on end where you didn't have that sunlight. So I definitely understand that. So Kristin, you have really mastered the film and flash. tell everyone, like, what do you do right now? Like, do you just put a flash on your film camera and just start shooting? Or what is your specialty right now? What are you doing in the photography world?
Sure. So my specialties, as far as what I'm using artificial light for the most, or off-camera flash, or is studio newborns and families. And but I will also take it to wedding venues when I photograph weddings, and use it there as fill light, so just a little extra light. But in the studio, I am I've got my film camera, and I've got a large, what we call strobe light, off camera on a light stand. And I use a very large 86-inch umbrella for as my modifier, because the larger your modifier, the larger your umbrella, your softbox, whatever you're using, the softer your light is going to be. So the more natural looking it's going to be, and the more flattering.
Okay, cool. I like your studio setup. I like how you kind of made that visual for us that are new to photography. So Kristin, you said too in the beginning, you said, you know what, I started in the days of film, when film was popular. So when people, especially new photographers, hear like your story where you're saying, you know, I have this beautiful studio set up and I know how to use film and I know how to use lighting and I know all of this. It wasn't always that way for you. So can you tell us, like, right from like the very beginning, like, how did your photography journey start? What was it that really inspired you to even get started with photography?
Absolutely. And I should clarify, when I say that I started out on film, I did photograph a couple weddings a long time ago on film. But it was quite a bit of time between that to when I actually became a professional photographer. Okay. So I started out, I have a degree in graphic design. So of course that took me into photography classes and stuff as part of that curriculum in college. But I've loved photography all my life. Fast forward several years, I had kids, taking them to the photo places in the mall to get their pictures taken. And I was getting extremely frustrated all the time with the cookie cutter images that I was getting from them. And so one year for Christmas, my husband said, well, I can either get you a dishwasher for Christmas, or you can get a camera that you've been wanting. And I picked the camera. I still don't have a dishwasher. But that was almost 12 years ago that I got my first, that would have been a digital camera for that. And I just started taking pictures of my kids and posting them on Facebook. And that was back in the days when Facebook actually, you had a reach and could see things that people posted. And friends would start to see that and say, hey, can you take my kids' pictures? And I started out doing sessions for $50 for friends. I had recently been laid off from my job. And I told my husband I'll just do this until I find something permanent. And here we are several years later, and I still haven't found that full-time desk job. So
you've got something better, right?
Yeah,
way better.
Yes, way better, way better. I am thankful every day for everybody who stuck by me. I have some clients that started out at those $50 sessions, and they're here with me on the other end, where I am definitely not $50 anymore. So I'm very thankful for that. But that's really how my photography journey started. I went back into film probably about 6 years ago when I was getting a little burnt out. And noticing that my kids were only seeing me from about here up behind the computer all the time. And I couldn't do that. They're 14 and 17 now, and we're only given so much time with them at home. And
Right. I love that. I love hearing from different photographers, their journey, but there's one thing that is always the same with all of these photographers that I chat with on the podcast. And those of you listening have probably figured that out now too. And what I want to keep kind of letting everybody know, especially all of you newer photographers, is that all of this success and knowledge, it just doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey with everybody. And it takes sometimes decades, years, sometimes, 2 decades, or it just takes time. And that's what I want all of you guys to realize too, is that when you hear this or you see things on social media, it's not people that have, it's like, Kristin, you didn't pick up a film camera, last month, and now you've got this huge studio with the flash. It's been a work in progress. And that's what I want people to realize too. Kristin, one last thing, I was curious, going back to film again, and when you're talking about your studio, because I don't really shoot film. I have, but not really anymore. And definitely not with my clients. When you're in your studio and you're working with clients, do you have like packages that are film only or digital only, or do you find that people will request film sessions, or how does that work?
So no, I am, they don't get the choice.
Okay.
I I look at it as, some artists choose to paint with watercolors, some choose to paint with oil paints, but you wouldn't tell them what to use.
Mm-hmm.
And so I choose whatever is best for that situation on that given day. I would say 90% of my studio sessions are done on film. People come to me not requesting that, but requesting the style that they know that they will get from the consistency of images shown on my social media and my website. So yes, it can be recreated a little bit on digital, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
I can tell the difference anyway. But no, if I am shooting a wedding day, I'm hybrid. I'm shooting both film and digital. There's just some moments that need the quick succession of images that you can take cheaply with a digital camera. And then there's moments that are okay to use film. And I think that it's great to use the mixture and be able to blend them together. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, when I work with my clients, I don't use film. So I wasn't quite sure how that all went together. And you know what, film, it kind of does scare me. So if you guys are listening, and I said it's kind of scary for a lot of photographers, it is for me too. So Kristin, I love that you clarified so much for us today. Now, Kristin, you get even deeper into film and flash in your contribution to the creative collaboration, which is open at the end of February, probably in just a couple of days if you guys are listening to this as it comes out now. So can you describe or explain to people listening what is your contribution in the creative collaboration?
Sure. So my contribution to the creative collaboration is a course called Film and Flash for the Hybrid Photographer. So I am not only teaching you how to use off-camera flash for film images, but I'm also teaching you how to use that for how it applies to digital images also. So whatever you're shooting, and you can shoot both at the same time and not have to change settings. In that course, I go over all of the equipment that is needed. I go very, very thoroughly over all the equipment that is needed. I also demonstrate how to meter for that, you'll see me setting it up, you see me tearing it down. I just go into as much detail as I can. You see me using the putting the modifier in different ways to create different types of light, a soft light, or maybe more of a harsh light, or even backlight. Gosh, there's so much in it. I can't even.
So it's your full film and flash course. It's the whole real deal. And that is so awesome. That's what I love so much about the creative collaboration is that there's so much to learn inside of it. And you guys, it's only open once a year. I've been talking to you guys about it a lot over this past month. But if you've been afraid of film and flash, if what Kristin was saying to you today interests you even a little bit, you've got to grab this. It's her full course plus a ton of other stuff. And you'll see that linked up in the show notes or in the description wherever you are listening to this podcast today. It's only open once a year. So you want to make sure that you check that out and learn more from Kristin in there. But Kristin, if people want to learn more about you right now, learn from you now, see your film, see your flash photos, where can they do that?
Absolutely. They can go to my website where I have a photographer for photographers tab on my website, and they can find out more about my courses that I offer. Also see a lot of my images, or hop on over to my Instagram and give me a follow. I absolutely love to see those new followers pop up, and I love to follow people back. But that's where I post most of my work, my current stuff. And that's my best portfolio to look at.
Fantastic. And I'm going to link directly to that in the show notes. So Kristin, I don't want them to just follow you. If you've got value from Kristin's conversation with me today, hit that link on my show notes, go to her Instagram and leave her a DM. Let her know that you are listening, say hello. We are real people. We're educators. We love to really connect and talk with people. So make sure to take the time to do that, because I know we appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely.
Kristin.
Yes. Please send me a DM. Ask me your flash questions, your film questions. I love to answer it. I nerd out on talking about all things film and flash. So please. Yeah, I'd love to talk.
Fantastic. Yeah, the film and flash photographer. I feel like there's so much fun, alliteration you could do with that, Kristin. I love it. But thank you again so much for being here with us today. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your knowledge. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
So if film or flash interests you even a little bit, you're going to want to take advantage of the creative collaboration. It is a complete bundle of photography education from over 50 photographers that opens February 27th. Kristin has her film and flash course in there, the full course, and I've got my family posing system course in there as well. There is so much more learning that is part of that creative collaboration. I've been talking about it all month. If you haven't heard from some of the other educators, you're going to want to make sure to listen to some of the past episodes of the Stay Focused podcast from February so you can hear even more about what's inside and get a little sneak peek from these educators as well. Now, you can check out the creative collaboration starting February 27th. You can click the link that is in the show notes or on the description to wherever you are listening to podcasts right now. If you are on iTunes, if you're a Spotify, just hit the description and all the links will be there for you to check it out too. And hey, while you are there, I would love if you would hit subscribe to the Stay Focused podcast and leave a quick rating and review for the show. It would really mean a lot to me, and it seriously just takes a couple seconds, you guys. All right, I will be back again next week with a double episode week, sharing more about all different genres of photography. You're definitely going to want to make sure you don't miss these episodes. But until then, here's to staying in focus, in camera, and with your goals. Bye, everyone.